and welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, we're going to do something a bit differently than usual, namely spending time on something that doesn't really help us become better investors, but simply use some time being entertained by looking at outrageous predictions from 2023, since Saxo Bank has been out with their 10 outrageous predictions for the year to come. At the end of the video, I will give an update to my portfolio as usual. So before we start looking at the outrageous predictions, why have I decided to spend an episode on this? Well, this is the time of the year where the banks come out with their predictions from what we can expect from the stock market in the coming year. And usually they say between 8 to 10%. And if they are really not sure, then they say between 5 and 15, since historically that is what we can expect. So instead of looking into something which doesn't give me any value, then at least I'm acknowledging the fact that I'm being entertained when I'm looking into outrageous predictions. So let's have a look at the outrageous predictions and see how well we can be entertained. And keep in mind, historically, some of the outrageous predictions that have been made by Saxo Bank has actually materialized, even though it took perhaps more than just 1 year for it to happen. It has actually happened. So despite the fact that these are pretty bold calls, just know that you cannot say that this will never happen when you're looking at them. And as always, I will of course include a link in the description below so you can go and read the full predictions for yourself. If we start with the first one, Billionaire Coalition creates $1 trillion Manhattan project for energy. So this prediction, they are saying that the richest people in the world will gather a research and development fund, which have not seen anything like that since the Manhattan Project to develop the first nuclear bomb, meaning a ridiculously large bet on research and development to try and solve the current energy crisis. The second prediction is that the French President Macron will resign from his presidency due to this political stalemate with Marine Le Pen, who has become more popular in the 2022 election, forcing Macron to resign at least for now. Third prediction, gold rockets to $3,000 as central banks fail on inflation mandate. As markets and central banks realize that the idea that inflation is transitory is wrong and that price will remain higher for longer, gold is sent through the roof, hitting a price tag of $3,000. So that is definitely an outrageous prediction, since the previous top was just above $2,000 back in 2020. So saying that we should see an increase of around 50% from that, well, that is definitely a bold call. The fourth call on the list is EU Army forces EU down path to full union. With the continued challenges in the region and the US military that isn't aggressively enacting its former role as global policeman, the European Union agrees to create its own armed forces, bringing the whole region closer. So naturally, this prediction is based on the war in Ukraine, since any real economic or political union must rank national securities as one of their highest priorities. So a consequence of this prediction is that the EU defense companies will outperform the market by around 25% due to this increased spending on military defense. And I mean, calling it the defense industry, that is just a politically correct way of phrasing weapons manufacturers. So if you didn't think that the first 4 predictions here were outrageous enough, well, number 5 here, a country agrees to ban all meat production by 2030 in order to reach net zero emission. Or number 6, that the UK holds an un-Brexit referendum. Or number 7, that widespread price controls are introduced to cap official inflation. Or number 8, that OPEC Plus and China and India walk out of the IMF and agree to trade with a new reserve asset. Or number 9, that the US yen fixed to a US at 200 and Japan overhauls the financial systems. Or number 10, that tax haven ban kills private equity. So hopefully I have now highlighted my views when it comes to predictions, since I would much rather spend my time having a good laugh when I'm reading through these outrageous predictions instead of looking through the regular predictions saying 8 to 10%, and if they really do not have a clue, then they just say between 5 and 15% if they really want to make sure that they can keep their job, namely that they are saying nothing out of the ordinary. So this is the exact opposite of what I have been doing over the last couple of weeks, where I have tried to show you where to find inspiration for your next investment. What you're seeing on the screen now, this is purely entertainment. I do not expect a single investment idea to come out of these outrageous predictions. And simply by acknowledging that fact, I think that makes me a better investor. And speaking of becoming a better investor, well, then what is more natural than to look at my portfolio and see how it has been performing over the last week. So the first thing we immediately notice is that there was a red circle for this week's episode. If we then go to the portfolio values tab, you can see that my portfolio is down $5,000 compared to last week. So this is what happens when you claim that you have become a better investor. Then immediately your portfolio must drop in value, because you must stay humble when it comes to investing. You will never know everything. So whenever my portfolio drops, I just remind myself that this is normal market fluctuations, the same way I do when the portfolio goes up. And I mean, it's actually quite fun when I'm seeing my portfolio is dropping in a week where I'm claiming that I'm becoming a better investor based off what I'm seeing. It's like the market is telling you, well, don't come and think you are so smart. There will always be stuff for you to learn. So I can only smile and laugh about it. So that's what I do. If we then continue to my favorite tab, namely the dividends tab, then this has been a quite quiet week since nothing has happened. I haven't received a single dividend in December so far. And if we go back to the overview icon and scroll all the way to the top, just so you can see how each individual stock has been performing within this week, then this is a good time to pause the video. And the second law of nature is, after you buy a stock, then immediately it will drop a little in value. To me, it almost seems like a law of nature, since usually that is what happens to me. Of course, you will always be just a tiny bit down, like a half a percentage point or something, since you pay some fees and you never get the exact lowest price within the day. But I mean, I'm already down more than 5% of Brookfield Asset Management, just to show you this is what happens. There was, however, one news item which I was happy to see, namely that Bristol Myers has increased their quarterly dividend by 5.6%, from 54 cents per share to 57 cents per share. So even with my most recent example of the second law of nature, namely that a stock will drop in value after you have purchased it, and the fact that I'm down $5,000 in value within a single week, well, I will stick to my game plan and invest for the long term. So let me know in the comments down below, what is your most outrageous prediction for 2023, if you have such a thing. And if you have enjoyed the content and have made it all the way to the end of this video, then please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. And until I see you next time, bye!